Right, we're now live. G'day everyone, welcome to Malts with Mates once again. I'm here today with Lord Iain Allan of Glen Moray. How you doing, Ian?
I'm great. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. Dublin's actually been hit with some sun, so while I'm wearing the shirt, you can't see, but I've actually got a bit of a tan and a bit of a burn going on because there's just been so much wonderful blue skies out here. How's the weather where you are at the moment?
Well, it's funny you should ask, because the heavens just opened about half an hour ago. So we've been blessed with much the same good weather, but it was absolutely teeming it down for the last half hour. So the dog is not getting taken out just now.
I heard Scotland and Scotland, the whole UK, being hit by some pretty massive showers, which I'm not a fan of because that means in about a day or so they're going to head over this way, and I'm gonna lose my wonderful sun. So that's going to be annoying.
Yes, not great, not great. But here, it's Scotland and Ireland. We don't live here for the sunshine, I'm sure.
No, no, people often ask me why I moved. Anyway, for the people who are watching who don't know much about you, could you tell us a bit
Mhm.
about yourself?
Yeah, so for those who don't know me, I'm Iain Allan. I'm the combination of two things, so it depends what time of the day it is, but I'm the visitor centre manager and global brand ambassador for Glen Moray Distillery. I started with Glen Moray about be 15 years coming up to in August. Prior to that, I worked with Macallan and Edrington, where I was visitor centre manager there for about just short of 4 years.
Nice. What took you into whiskey to begin with as well? That's always a fun question.
I kind of studied law and management at university, and during to get myself through uni, I took a part-time job at a wines and spirits store, and fell in love with the spirit side. Not to say I didn't enjoy the wines as well, but the spirit side in particular interested me. And it was kind of, I was speaking to somebody recently about this, and it was kind of like an epiphanous moment. I happened to be traveling a little bit around Europe, as you do when you're a student, sitting in a bar, and realized that there was a lot of brands sitting behind that bar that came from my locale. They came from just my doorstep back home, and realized that it was an interesting category. It was it came from where I was born, and it was global. It didn't matter which bar we went into, it didn't matter where about in Europe we went to. You could find a Glenfiddich, you could find Glen Grant, occasionally you might find a Glen Moray, but all these brands you kind of took for granted because they were on your doorstep. You could find all over the world, which was kind of really piqued my interest. And it came from there. Just decided to apply for a job, move into the industry back in 2002, and the rest, as they say, is history.
Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah. I mean, something, John McShane from the Whiskey Society. He always
Yes.
used to say that, Scotch whiskey is it's the only drink in the world where you order it by the association of the country. You say you'd like a Scotch, and it always gets you one. And it is true that you do see so many brands everywhere, and it's just wow, there is so much more than anyone can drink in a lifetime. But we do try.
Absolutely, yes. We're trying our best to shorten the whiskey lakes that could come that way if we didn't.
So, as visitor center manager and global brand ambassador, obviously you'd be doing something very different at this point in time. What would you be
Mhm.
doing right now if we weren't on the lockdown, and how are you feeling your days?
Well, just now, particularly saddened by this weekend because it would be Spirit Speyside Whiskey Festival, which
Mm.
is our busiest weekend of the year. It's non-stop. It's a lot of work, but also it's a lot of fun. You get to meet up with friends who've been visiting the distillery for years. We do some great events over the years. We've had some fantastic events. We were bringing back the Glen Moray barbecue, which we didn't do last year, but that was going to be making a return this year, which was always one of my favourites. So sadly, none of those events will be running. So right this moment in time, it's Friday night. I would have been preparing for a tasting with Hans Offringer. We were doing joint SMWS and Glen Moray tasting at the Glen Moray Visitor Centre. So that would have been
Mm.
kicking off later tonight. So we are kind of resurrecting it slightly. So we're doing an online virtual pub tonight with SMWS, which Hans and I are doing a little bit just as a token nod to what we should have been doing at this moment in time.
Well, I mean, that actually brings us really neatly on to another one of the questions. With SMWS and a lot of other independent bottlers, Glen Moray seems to put out a lot of whiskies through the independent bottlers. How do you decide on who you're working with there?
So that's really changed over the years. You know, that kind of long running history of a lot of our stuff going out to independent bottlers. Whilst frustrating, it was quite helpful for Glen Moray as a brand, because it wasn't really pushed very heavily as a brand. And under Glenmorangie, certainly a lot of the stock, a lot of the single casks, a lot of the really interesting bits and pieces that we had, that was kind of pushed through independent bottlers, because there really wasn't much of a route to market under the Glen Moray label. That's changed with La Martini Kes, who took us over in 2008. And whilst we still deal with some independent bottlers, we're a little bit more selective now. So we're not sending out the volume that we did. We are still very very selective with the casks, because a good independent bottler can do a lot of legwork for you, I think. You know, we still work with some great independent bottlers. You know, there's a couple of guys out in the States with Single Cask Nation that I've worked with for a few years, and we will continue to work with, purely because they're great ambassadors for the brand. You know, they'll go out there, they'll talk about it. They come to the distillery, they spend time with you and understand it. And I think, you know, a good independent bottler is a good marketing tool for any distillery or brand.
Do you find that as these independent bottlers do certain cask finishes or cask maturations, do you find that can influence you in any way, or Glen Moray might see what's happened there and say, you know what, we want to run trials, but you guys have already, we'll take that on board?
To be honest, I would challenge anybody to put something in a cask that we've not already tried or done. We've got such a crazy mix, and you know, a lot of different styles out there, even within our core range, which you can probably see some of on the shelf behind me. You know, we've got such a combination of finishes. We've got port, we've got sherry, we've got rum, we've got what else have we got? Cabernet, we've got Chardonnay. So we've got a lot out there, and we've got a lot of interesting stuff to come. So yeah, I think the one that I would have liked to have done, but we've already fallen foul of the SWA, was the Scotch Malt Whisky Society gin release, which that found the same problems we did with our cider cask. So that would be one would have liked to have tried, but sadly, probably best not to at the moment.
So that was another one of my questions. Speaking of your classic range, by the way, I've got myself a bottle of your port cask finish here.
Good choice. Good choice.
I'm actually going to pour myself some right now. I don't know if you can drink because you've got the thing on later. What do you want to?
I can drink. Of course, I can drink. I'm actually almost on a bottle kill. I was kind of saddened to see that. I'm drinking the 1998 Pedro Jimenez cask finish. It's almost done. It's coming to an end. I'm still on shelf. I'm not a salesman, so I'm not going to do the hard sell, but it surprises me. So if anybody does like Glen Moray in big sherry casks, we've still got it at the distillery. You know, I'd have thought that's one, given the quality of the liquid, would have long since departed us. Oh, it's a good thing for me.
Well, you heard it here first. Go out and buy some more Glen Moray, guys. You're disappointed.
Yeah, I'm not doing the hard sell, but yeah, but it's a good thing for me. I'm delighted we've still got it, because it's one of my favourites that we've done in a long time. Glen Moray and big sherry casks is a big favourite of mine. Port's lovely as well. Good choice.
The port, I'm a sucker for a port cask whiskey. I'm a sucker for port just in general. So this is really up my street. But going back to the cider cask that you had,
yes,
obviously the SWA wasn't allowing it. So I recall tasting it. I can't remember if it went on the market, but what ended up happening there?
So it went on market. So we created a range called Curiosity. So the idea was we were going to try and dig up some interesting, weird and wonderful casks and bring it out. We'd already done 2 cider casks through the distillery's own bottle. So bottle your own at the distillery. They were really popular, and that kind of gave us the impetus to start doing it in a kind of wider release. So it was about, off the top of my head, I think it was 3,000 bottles in cider cask. It was released. All of it came out. The SWA pulled us up on it. Basically, what happened was they invite you to come and argue a case for it being something which should be permitted and something which does fall into the realm of a traditional cask. They didn't take us on our case, so it was basically a sell what you've got, don't promote it, but don't make any more was the approach that was taken. So it's long since gone. Anything like that causes a little bit of controversy is seen as being a little bit more off-piste, so to speak, builds its own kind of business, and people are intrigued to try, knowing that they probably won't get to try it again, certainly not in the foreseeable future.
Well, I mean, famously, the SWA changed their regulations, I believe, last year to allow for a wider variety of casks. Yes. Are you experimenting with any of those styles that may have come about?
Yep, certainly. We'll be looking at the likes of tequila and that in the foreseeable future. So that's something which we're looking into. Glen Moray's always been experimental. And anything which allows us to continue that process of experimentation, we're going to embrace. We're going to, grasp with two hands and take the opportunity to try it out and see. Because with a lot of these things, it is a suck it and see. You'll stumble upon something which is maybe amazing. You may put it into a cask and it just doesn't work with your spirit. So you just have to deal the cards you're dealt and see how it works. So we'd rather know than not know. So we'll try it.
Oh, it's a fantastic thing there. What's Glen Moray, the distillery, doing at the moment? I mean, obviously they're closed to public. Are they currently producing hand sanitizer, or is it a complete lockdown? No one can go in.
No, so as a company, we were producing hand sanitizer, but that was done by our grain distillery down in Bathgate at Starla. So they produced quite a volume of hand sanitizer and put that out. Or the spirit to go in. We didn't make the hand sanitizer. We gave the spirit to produce it. At Glen Moray, it's had the reverse effect than probably most people would think. A lot of people think it would shut us down. It actually forced us to continue working because we were scheduled for our annual shutdown for maintenance. But because we couldn't get any of the contractors or the engineers in because they were either furloughed or they don't come from Elgin and they couldn't get accommodation, we continued producing. So actually, we should have been shut down, but actually continued producing. The production process is two guys, so they're quite separate. Mashed and Stillman, opposite ends of the building, so there's no challenge around social distancing. So they're probably
okay.
I'm probably quite happy with the peace and quiet. They don't have to speak to each other. So,
that's quite good to hear. And I know you had Chardonnay and Chenin Blanc finishes in your range. That seemed to come about before anyone else was doing these specialized finishes. What was the story behind that? What was the kind of impetus to go towards it?
So in the 1990s, all the Glen Moray range, the complete range, was finished in white wine casks. So we did, even before the terminology of finishing had even been coined, we were referring to it as wine mellowed. So if you see these often appear at auction sites, you'll see a Glen Moray wine mellowed. It's basically a wine finish whiskey prior to the term finishing being around. That was kind of, it was a period of, again, experimentation where Glen Moray was very much the guinea pig of the stable with the Glenmorangie Company, where they would test out a lot of different cask finishes and everything else. Kind of ahead of the curve, I think. I think it came out, before people realised or understood what we were doing. And it was short-lived. It disappeared. We then filled some of the casks that were due to be used with new make spirit and just put them into the warehouse and left it. And that ultimately became the 10-year-old Chardonnay cask. You can see there. That was always going to be a limited, depending on your kind of view on what number is limited. It was always going to be short-lived, out for a while and then disappear because we weren't backfilling. So we just filled the casks that we had at the time, put them into the warehouse and left them. We weren't filling for next year's 10, next year's 10, next year's 10. So once that was sold out, that was the Chardonnay full matured kind of used up. We still have some casks in warehouse, but not any volume to do a big release such as that. But we continued the range with the Chardonnay finish, which I actually don't have on shelf here. So the classic Chardonnay finish. So that was really kind of born out of the fact that the 10-year-old was kind of so popular. People still enjoyed the Chardonnay aspect of Glen Moray, and I think it's a nice one to have as part of our core range, because it's a little nod to that history of using white wine casks, which not a lot of distilleries are doing out there.
No, and it's a real shame, because your white wine cask is quite fantastic. I'm a big fan of it. Can't get it over in Ireland, but I'm a big fan.
So on that one, again, this is making me sound like I'm trying to do the sales pitch, but as part of our Spirit Speyside release, we were going to be bringing 3 single casks out this weekend. We always try and do a distillery exclusive release for this festival. And that would have been, part of that would have been a full matured 13-year-old Chardonnay cask, single cask. Wow. That will now be delayed. I think we're bottling on around about the 4th of May, I think, off the top of my head. So we'll see that at the distillery in a couple of weeks' time. It'll be available on mail order, but obviously it's generally a release that you can pick up by visiting us. But for the time being, obviously, that's not the case.
No, that's quite interesting, though. And, I mean, you've tried it, I imagine.
I have, yes. Yeah, and good. So have some folk who have been to Glasgow Whisky Festival. We took some samples to Glasgow Whisky Festival in November, I think, last year, just as a kind of taster for it. So some people out there have tried it. It's a lovely whiskey. It's really nice. We've got the Chenin Blanc, the Chardonnay, and a Burgundy cask, all full maturation, 13 and 14 years old. One of them is 14, and I actually can't remember which one is 14. I should have done my research. But for me, the Chenin Blanc is a favourite. I absolutely love Glen Moray and Chenin Blanc. It works really well.
Aye. Oh, so what goes in when you're choosing Chenin Blanc, Chardonnay, Bordeaux, Port, the sherry? What goes into choosing any one of those casks? Is it kind of a let's try everything and see what sticks, or is it we think this will work best? We have a space we want to fill.
So when you mean filling them or selecting them for release?
Well, both. Let's go with both.
So filling them, a lot of this is inherited from Glenmorangie era. The new fills that we do for the Glen Moray Classic release, actually, we did make an adjustment to that one, because prior to that we were using French Chardonnay casks. When we were finishing, it was bringing a slightly kind of savoury note to it. So we switched it to American Chardonnay casks because it worked a little bit better with our spirit, brought more of that sweetness to the fore. When it comes to selecting them for release, that's where it becomes really quite interesting, because the wine casks are so variable. I think this is why a lot of distilleries maybe back away from wine casks, because you can get ones that have a big impact on the flavour profile, and some which do very little to it. By having a wine cask within the core range, we can kind of balance those out by kind of marrying them together. Single cask, you can then cherry pick the style that you prefer. Ultimately, single cask selection is always a very kind of personal approach. You pick whiskies that you like and you enjoy. Prior to that, Graham would have been selecting the casks. We now have Kirsty on board selecting the casks. I'm getting more involved with regards to selection for distillery exclusives and also distillery bottle your own. So it's a fun part of the job. It's a part where everybody wants to be choosing casks. You just get let loose in a warehouse and go for it.
Oh, it's brilliant. And I mean, of all the whiskies that you have in your range, what's your pick? Which one do you enjoy?
So the range, we've got such a wide range. I approach it from two aspects. From our core range, from the ones that we have week in, week out, it's the 18-year-old. 18 I absolutely love. I've got a soft spot for it because it was the first core range expression that Glen Moray released that was non-chill filtered, which was something that I've been wanting to see Glen Moray do for so long. So it was great to finally see that coming out. Within our limited editions, I'm a sucker for sherry, anything in sherry. We did a 1994 sherry cask a few years ago, which I think we did a tasting with you, and I think you maybe got the opportunity to try that one.
I think I did, yeah.
Yeah, and then at the moment, the one I'm drinking just now, the distillery exclusive Pedro Jimenez sherry cask, it just brings that lovely, rich sherry sweetness. It's almost like a liqueur. It's so sweet and so viscous. It's great.
Now, you've got a huge range, so please correct me if I'm wrong here, but most of your standard bottlings, the things that you always put out, tend to be on the younger side. You seem to save the older whiskies and the vintage whiskies for those single cask or those distillery releases. Is this to ensure that you have more freedom with the releases?
I really, at the moment, it's down to the fact that we're not blessed with a huge volume of aged stock. So, bringing something within the core range at an age point is challenging for us, or certainly to do it on a consistent level. So, we're currently coming to a point where we can bring out a 30-year-old. So that was intended to happen this year. The way things are going just now in the world, a lot of our bottling and a lot of our releases are kind of slipping back a little bit. So it may be, I haven't heard the final decision on this. It may be kind of pushed back to next year. I'm not sure, but certainly we are scheduled for a 30-year-old to join the range. That will give us an 18, a 21, a 25, and a 30 within the core range. So we're filling those gaps, and those gaps, as you say, are more so in the older profile because we've got a lot of younger stock. With the classic range, that's an average about 5-6 years old. We've got the 12 and we've got the 15, and the rest are starting to follow suit.
Yeah. I mean, not to say I don't like the classic range. Honestly, I love it. It's fantastic. And you also did a very interesting cask. I want to say this was 3 years ago, 3 or 4 years back. It may have been the centenary, but there was a 50-year-old cask, a 40-year-old cask, a 30, a 20, and a 10-year-old, all in the one.
Yes, so Mastery. Yeah, it was a fantastic release. It was a stunning liquid, and ultimately because of the nature of it, it was a non-age statement whiskey because it was a mixture of years. But yeah, it was just beautiful. Released for our 120th anniversary. I do have a bottle here. It's over in the corner somewhere, and it was taking some of our older and rarer stocks, and it was also a nod to that kind of history of being experimental around finishing. Whilst we were kind of at the forefront of the distilleries kind of experimenting with the finishing process in the early days, something we'd never actually done was mix together finishes. So Mastery was a combination of a port finish, 2 sherry finishes, a Madeira finish, and a straight bourbon cask as well. So it was bringing a lot of different flavors together. So it's probably one of the most complex releases we've ever brought out from Glen Moray.
Oh, that's really interesting. It was. I do remember trying it. It was a fantastic whiskey. I'm sorry, it's all gone. So you're on virtual festivals, as you said. You'll be on tonight with the SMWS Festival. Where else can we see Iain? Where else can we see Glen Moray coming up?
We've been, I've been doing a lot behind the scenes with distributors. So I've been doing a lot of tastings pretty much every day. So that global brand ambassador side of things, that has continued. So I've had the pleasure of being in America 3 times, Russia 3 times, Beirut in Lebanon, Germany, the UK. So all from the comfort of my own house, which, whilst it's a nice feeling to be able to continue to work and still do things, I'm delighted I'm still able to do this. I'm missing getting out and about. As far as kind of more open kind of public tastings, we did one through our own social media channels last Friday. Our marketing team really enjoyed it. They liked it, and they're keen to do that on a weekly basis. So as of next Friday, on our Instagram, Glen Moray Instagram, you'll be able to join myself and Kirsty again, Kirsty McCallum, doing We've got a few things lined up. I don't know what the itinerary is yet, what next week will be or the following week. We've got a few interesting concepts. We've got a cocktail session, a food pairing session, and a few other bits and pieces through our own Instagram channels. So watch out for those. Join us on those.
Oh, I can't wait to see that. And speaking of cocktails, I mean, if you're going to put any one of your whiskies into a cocktail, what cocktail and which whiskey would you choose?
You're asking the wrong guy. Me and cocktails, we don't mix very well. I like an old fashioned, and we had a series of events with old fashions in the classic range, with Neil Ridley and Joel Harrison Greer, and they got us. They came to the distillery and got us to make our own old fashions, and I made one with the peated classic, which I quite liked. I liked a bit of smokiness in an old fashioned. I think it worked quite well. Don't ask me what else was in it. I've no idea. I can stretch to the odd Negroni now and then, but I'm not much of a mixologist. My marketing team hate me for it. They keep saying do stuff with cocktails, and I'm like, nope, don't have a clue. Somebody else knows more about that than me.
Look, I've had to do more. I've had to do a few cocktails in my time, and it's fun. But then you learn 3 that you really love, and that's it. That's all I want to
stick
do.
to.
I don't care about anything else.
Yeah, I'd love to get into it. It's something, when I first started in the industry, I was super precious about it. Oh, you don't make cocktails with single malts. Over the years, I've kind of given in and accepted. We work with a great... Oh, yeah, disappeared. You back?
Yep, sorry, we lost you for a second there.
That's all right. Yeah, we work with a guy runs a bar in Aberdeen called the Tippling House, which when this lockdown kind of finishes, I highly recommend everybody to get there because he's amazing. And we're hoping to get him lined up to do some cocktail sessions online. So I hand it over to these guys. The guys that know what they're doing with cocktails.
All right, mate. If you know about whiskey, they know about cocktails. That's all we really need.
I know how to drink whiskey. I know how to drink a cocktail. So
I hope you do. All right. So I don't want to take up too much of your time considering you've got something actually important on tonight.
No, you're all right. I've got it not till 8 o'clock, so we're all good. We're all good.
Well, I've got a couple of little questions here that I've written out, and I sincerely hope they're better than the last couple of questions I've asked people. But if you're cool, we'll go through a little mini quiz here and
go for it.
See how you do. All right. Which distillery did Robert Burns lament the loss of in his poem Scotch Drink?
It's got to be something down kind of Fife direction. I don't know. I'll pass on that one.
It was Farintosh or Ryefield. Farintosh so sadly lost. Scotland lament coast to coast. I only know that because I read it earlier today, and I thought that's a great question to ask.
Don't ask me to recite Burns poetry either.
No, I'll try not to. How many of this? So Rome was built on 7 hills. Dufftown was built on 7 stills. How many of those 7 stills could you name?
What have we got? Mortlach, Glenfiddich, Parkmore. I should know this because I did the last year at the Duffton Whisky Festival. We did Duffton versus Elgin, and I had a thing about the 7 stills. Why has my brain gone dead? Duffton, Parkmore. Oh no! And you put me on the spot. My brain's gone dead. I do know them, and I'm going to kick myself.
Glenfiddich, Balvenie, Mortlach, Dufftown, Glendullan, Parkmore, and Convalmore.
Yes, I all of those I knew, but my brain went dead. It's first ram of the day. That's what's done it.
No, mate. The only one I know is of those is actually Convalmore. It's the only one I know, purely because I did an old and rare tasting with a bottle of Convalmore, and I opened it and the cork snapped. And that was the here's this demolished distillery. I've never tried a Convalmore. You've never tried a Convalmore. Oh,
one of I know you're on the quiz, but one of my favourite cork snapping moments was, I think it was Ranald from Springbank. We were down at the Whisky Exchange show, and you have the dream dram where somebody takes a token and gets a whiskey, and they had this really old Springbank that they pulled out, decided to film it to broadcast the opening of this really old bottle of Springbank just as he pulled the cork snapped.
Those are the moments that make whiskey festivals and make things you'll never forget. It's not a great moment.
It's not. It is. You can laugh about it after.
Oh yeah, definitely. All right. So, got a question here about Whiskey Auctioneer. Recently suffered a DDoS attack. No idea what that is. During that auction, they were going to be auctioning the most expensive bottle of whiskey ever sold. Do you know what the bottle of whiskey was?
That was the Macallan. What was the name of the artist again? The Adame portrait bottling, wasn't it? That one.
It's definitely Macallan.
Yep.
I have written down here fine and rare 1926, but by all means, you might actually be correct because I think I found about 6 different names going up when I was researching these questions. I didn't really research too hard.
The funny thing, that bottle, I actually sold one of those bottles when I worked at Macallan, the fine and rare 26s. And at the time, it certainly wasn't what the kind of money it went for. Off the top of my head, I think it was about 25 grand, something like that, a bottle. It seemed ridiculously expensive back then. I wish I bought one.
Well, because I know most recently one of those old Macallan fine rares, I think it was that one. It sold on auction for $1.9 million US, which is a ridiculous sum of money. You know,
it is.
If you would you crack it? Would you drink it? You've got the $2 million to throw away.
If I had the money to throw away, I don't think I would. No,
huh?
No. You know, I've been blessed in the industry to try, and I'm pretty sure I tried the 26. When I worked there, I'm pretty sure I went in with Bob, who was the whiskey maker at the time, and I'm sure he poured me a sample of the 26. You know, I find with these kind of, you know, super expensive, very old whiskies, they tend to be great whiskies, but as soon as you attach the price tag to them, you judge them differently, and I think you judge them more harshly. I think, which is unfair on the liquid in itself. And if I dropped that kind of money, I would expect, you know, fanfare from the heaven above to open up and start to play music that sends me into rapture.
When you open it up, you know, Arthur's Peak in Edinburgh needs to erupt again.
Yes.
You know, the famous knight, I can't actually remember his name, King Arthur, that's his name. King Arthur needs to come back and then pour it for you by hand and give it to you.
Absolutely.
And that's, you know, that stuff needs to happen if you're dropping that much.
When you think, you know, if you have £2 million to drop, you could probably kind of build the decent foundations of a distillery there. And if I had the money, that would be the one thing I would love to do, is build and own my own distillery. So that would be the direction I would take with that kind of cash.
See, I'd go along the same route. I'd probably open up my own independent bottlers, just because, I mean, I love whiskey. I know roughly how whiskey is made, but I love the cask. I love the maturation aspect. So the ability to purchase, you know, a ton of new make from various sources and start my own independent bottling or my own bondage warehouse, I think that would be fantastic. I'd probably drink most of it myself, but
did you call it bond? Did you say bondage warehouse or bondage?
I did say bondage. I've only had 2 whiskeys today.
Yeah, I'll let you stick to your bondage warehouse.
I mean, if I've got 2 million to drop, I can open whatever I want.
You do what you want. Absolutely. That's a whole different tour experience.
Now, Soren from OCD Whiskey has just asked, what would you call that distillery that you're opening?
What I call the distillery I'm opening? I suppose it depends where we are. You know, you've got to find some weird and wonderful Gaelic representation of your area and then name it after that. Isn't that the rule? I don't know. I haven't thought about it. I'd like to. I love what Billy Walker does. You know, he goes in and buys distilleries that have got stock, got something that you can immediately start playing around with it and get it out there. So, I'd like to think it's one it's already named. And to be honest, I'm not going to be fussy. I'll take anywhere. Macallan,
No,
somewhere like that.
before we started this, we spoke about how you're a Star Wars fan. So I honestly thought you were gonna call it the Gaelic translation for A New Hope or something.
Yeah. If we can do that, that'd be great. I do one thing I would love to do, and my marketing guys they never follow me. I keep dropping it into conversation. Is with Star Wars, I'm a big comic book fan. I'd love to do a series of whiskies where the packaging is designed by a famous comic book artist. That's always been something. That's something I'd love to do and love to release. But that's kind of combining my two geeky passions.
I would pay good money for that because good comic book artists, the really good ones, that would be absolutely amazing. Jesus, boy, yeah, I can never recall if Jamie Delano was a writer or an illustrator, but to have a story about a whiskey written by a comic book writer and then actually have the art done by a comic book artist, I think that I would. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
if you put out a line of creature whiskies, I will buy every single one of them.
There's mileage there. I shouldn't have gone public with that. I'll keep it to our marketing team, but they're not biting, so find somebody who does.
It's fine. We'll edit this whole bit out.
Okay.
Edit out the bit about bondage as well.
Yeah.
All right. Couple more questions. All right. So Conor McGregor released a whiskey. Can you name the whiskey, and can you tell us? Do you know why it's named that?
Is it Proper 12? Proper 12? Is that what it's called?
Proper 12.
Why it's named that, I have absolutely no idea. I'm sure it's something to. Is it to do with whiskey or to do with his other career?
To do with it, it's to do with Dublin. Apparently, Conor McGregor grew up in Dublin 12 because Dublin's separated into suburbs 1, 2, 3, all the way up to like 16 or something. But he grew up in Dublin 12, so Proper 12, Dublin 12 brings it all together. It is
Okay.
It's not in relation to the age, as I got tired of telling people when they wanted the 12-year-old Conor McGregor whiskey, and I had to say it's a 3-year-old grain with a little bit of malt in it. I
don't know what you feel about it, but I think these kind of celebrity releases, is it aviation gin with Ryan Reynolds? I like it. I think it brings people into the category. I'd like to think that the quality is good. I've never tried Proper 12. I don't know whether it's good or not, but it's got to pull some people in who otherwise probably don't drink whiskey. So it's got to be from that perspective.
Well, I've tried the whiskey, and it's not to my taste. I don't think it's a good whiskey, but
Yep.
I think it's done something, as you say, it's done something for whiskey that a lot of brands have failed to do over decades, where it brought in a huge demographic of non-whiskey drinkers into whiskey. They came in looking for Proper 12, they get that, they come back, and gradually come in. So being able to get a new demographic in and getting more people into whiskey, he has succeeded in doing that, which is incredibly impressive considering distilleries have been trying to do that for decades, and brands have tried and failed for years and years. So that is something. So congratulations.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
All right. 2 more questions.
Fire away. Not doing very well.
I looked up all of these. I only know one of these, and that was the Conor McGregor one. Glen Turret had a famous distillery cat. You know the name of the cat?
That was Mauser, wasn't it?
Towser.
Towser the Mauser. Yes,
I'll give you that one.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone in my flat keeps asking if we want to get a cat, and I keep saying, "Hey, I'm not a fan of cats. I wouldn't hit it, but I would accidentally kick it." I said accidentally.
I heard you.
Just because I stumble a lot. I am very bad and very, very bad on my feet, so I would probably trip over the cat. Anyway, one more question. Do you know there was the Great Whiskey Fire of Dublin? Do you know what year that was in?
I had no idea. I don't know. Do you want me to I'll guess a year. Or Irish whiskey, kind of 1910.
You're 30 odd years off, mate. That's pretty good. 1875.
There we go.
And that apparently, there was whiskey running down the there was rivers of fire coming down the street. And people were scooping up whiskey with their shoes to drink, and people were suffering from all types of burns. And it was, why wouldn't it go away from the fire? Because there was whiskey involved. Yeah, all right. Yeah, I would have stayed too.
Sounds like Speyside Whisky Festival, to be honest.
I mean, Speyside's the one whiskey festival I've not managed to get to. I mean, no,
Shocking.
not the one, but the one big
Yeah.
festival I've not managed to get to. I think every time it was on, I was working, and sadly, I wasn't actually working the festival, which was kind of disgraceful, I think. When it starts up next year, I'll be trying to get over next year.
Yeah, definitely. It's a great weekend. I highly recommend it to anybody who's not been. Those of you who had tickets lined up, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of you are disappointed to miss out this year. Hopefully, we'll be back bigger and better next year.
I've no doubt. So that really brings us to a close today. And I know that you've got stuff on tonight. So is there any? Can we tune into the SMWS, or can we follow along in any way, or is it a closed?
No. It's I think it's on SMWS social media channels and on YouTube, so you can join in. There's going to be another quiz, which I'll probably do equally as bad at. There's going to be, I think, there's music. There's other bits and pieces. Tasting with Hans, so he's doing the Spirit Speyside Festival releases that they would have had. We've got a Glen Moray in there as well, so yeah, it'll be fun. Be something to enjoy on a Friday evening with a whiskey.
No, that'll be fantastic. I'll tune in tonight if once I've passed dinner, or maybe I'll sit down with it. But Iain, it was absolutely fantastic to have you on today. Thanks so much for coming on. Thanks to everyone who was watching it live and everyone who watches the replay. But we'll see you next time. And Iain, thank you once again.
Thank you, Marcus. Always a pleasure. Cheers. Bye.
Oh, there we go.